start with a little bit about me and my story so that you can know who's talking with you before we kind of move into some of the tools and the principles that we've learned becoming debt-free and living out this journey towards financial freedom, because debt freedom is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is financial freedom and being able to live and give so that you can build a legacy and ultimately fill out what God has called each of us to be, right? So about me, born and raised Charlotte, North Carolina, but after high school, I knew I wanted to experience other locations, not just in the States, but abroad as well. So after high school, decided to go to Washington, D.C., where I attended Georgetown University. I majored in finance and international business. After that, moved to New York, worked in investment banking. So I was in financial services for a few years. Then I moved into the nonprofit space. Financial service companies became my client. So did nonprofit for a few years, decided to go back to grad school, and grad school was at Duke University. So again, focused on the business side of things, got my MBA there. And then I decided to switch careers and move into HR, or human resources, human capital. So started focusing on what does it mean to hire, develop, and retain strong talent within organizations. So over the last, call it 8 to 10 years, that's what I've been doing. I've been focused in the HR space across different industries. I've been in biotech, consulting, now I'm in the sports industry. So I don't say my bio to pat myself on the back. Factually, we can say in America, some of those are signals of success. What I didn't share in all of that are the bumps in the road, right? I think we all know social media, when people are telling their stories, they tell the highlights, but what were the bumps along the road? The biggest bump here, for the purpose of this conversation, was debt, right? So what I didn't tell you is that I walked away from Georgetown University with over $70,000 in debt. When I left Duke University, tally that all up, I was over $200,000 in debt. Now, before each of those, I had an opportunity to make a different decision, and I did not. So flashback to high school, I had a presentation similar to this where people were speaking to me about different colleges and universities. Saw Georgetown flash on the screen, beautiful campus, snow was on the ground, you saw the co-eds walking around, and I was like, Mom, that's where I'm going. It's like, okay. Fast forward, applied to schools, all this great stuff, had some opportunities where I had a full ride scholarship to other schools. My mom is saying, hey, you should go where the money is. But I wanted to go to Georgetown. Georgetown told me early on, you're not getting all the money. It's not happening. But I was set in my ways that that's where I wanted to go. Yes, it has ultimately worked out, but at the time, I was willfully choosing debt, right? My mom was very clear. If you're gonna go where you do not have a full ride scholarship, that's on you, I'm not paying for it. I respect it, right? Fast forward, now we're talking about grad school. Similar situation. I applied to schools, at least one gave me a full ride scholarship, and I decided, you know what, I really want to go to Duke University for these reasons. Great, had a scholarship but not a full ride, incurred more debt. So these are already showing you opportunities where you could choose another path. Can God work it out? Absolutely. But there are opportunities where we can say no to debt before even incurring it. So going back to after I graduated from Duke, many of you may know, if you've ever incurred student loan debt, you have about 6 months after you graduate for this, what they call a grace period, which means you don't have to pay the government back yet. You don't have to pay your creditors back yet, but interest is accruing. So fast forward to that 6-month timeline being done, I took the courage to say, okay, I need to figure out what I actually owe. That was the most daunting thing I did, because I knew it was going to be a large number, but I didn't know what that number actually was. So spoiler alert, you already know it's 200K, right? So at that point, I had to figure out, what am I going to do about it? By the grace of God, at that time in my life, we were attending a church in Boston that introduced to us this financial study group called Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. Went through the course, that was about 9 weeks. And so throughout that time, and the 4 years or the 3.5 years it took thereafter for me to get out of debt, I learned a lot of great tools, had a ton of resources, learned a lot about discipline, the power of saying no when you want to say yes, and really learned how to live on a tight budget. learned how to be content with what I had and not look across and say, okay, well, this person's going here, this person's got this new outfit, this person going on this vacation, etc. It taught me the power of discipline and contentment. And then, if not already shared, I also met my husband in that course, so if nothing else, I got that blessing of him. So that's a little bit about me. Before I dive in, I'm curious, has anyone, I know Mr. and Mrs. Belk have, but has anyone else ever gone through the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University course? Okay, we see a couple hands, fantastic. Since you raised your hand, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you wanna say what the 7 baby steps are? In the back. Who raised their hand that said they've been through the course? In the, yes. You can't cheat, you can't cheat. I'll give you a break. You can say, what was the hardest step for you to comprehend, not to go through? What was the hardest step for you in your journey?
This was a lot of years ago.
It's okay.
So I'm trying to rewind here. Yeah, I think it was.
Yep. Appreciate that. Thank you for that transparency. And the first $1,000, as you can see in the packet that you have, that's step number 1, right? First step is $1,000 in your emergency fund. After that, it's paying off your debt, saving 3 to 6 months of expenses, investing, saving for your child's college fund if you have children, paying off your home early, and then building wealth and giving. So I say all that because, again, if there are 7 steps, getting out of debt is not every single step. That means there's more to the story, right? And let's be real, just focusing on getting out of debt and the intensity and the patience and the discipline that requires, it's not fun. So we have to have some bigger goal, as I mentioned before, that is our motivator, that intrinsic motivation that says, hey, this is what I'm striving for. Again, financial peace, financial freedom, and doing what God has called us to do with our money. Now, I have focused a little bit on my story in this scenario. So in January of 2020, I became debt-free and was able to do the debt-free screen with Dave Ramsey. But my husband and his journey, because our debt freedom largely came before we got married. We were dating and engaged throughout this process. But in June of 2022, about 4 months into us getting married, he finished completing his debt repayment of $80,000 in student loan as well. So together, we had a little over $280K, and a lot of that is interest. So don't let interest get you, y'all. It's not it. It's a silent killer. Okay, so given what I've said thus far, a biggest piece as we kind of walk through the baby steps, I want to talk through the mindset and some principles that you really should have in your mind as you're kind of going into this. So unfortunately, 60% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without the use of a credit card. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Those are really alarming numbers, right? So the thing that really tells me is that we are letting our money control us. We are letting creditors control us. We are letting consumerism control us versus us telling our money where to go. So the 7 baby steps, this whole process allows you to take control of your money with action and with resources and tools. So what this process is not, it's not getting rich quick. It is meant to be a steady plan that you can follow with actual steps. Second, the baby steps build on each other. They're meant to go in order, not to skip steps. It's very easy to go through and say, oh, I want to do all these things all at the same time. But as we know, even with multitasking, if you're trying to do a lot all at once, you're doing nothing very well. So it's best to go in order and not to skip steps. Third, I alluded to this earlier, getting out of debt requires intensity and discipline if you want to do it quickly. Like, it's easy to say, yep, I'm just going to pay this over the course of 10 years, 15 years. If I die with a debt, who cares, right? But if you want to get out of debt quickly, it requires intensity and discipline. The Word of God, it says in Hebrews 12:11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. The last principle I want to share before we get into the steps are that it is 80% behavioral change and 20% knowledge. I think between YouTube, TikTok, all the books you can read, it's like, how much more knowledge can I get, right? That is a piece of it. But if your behaviors aren't shifting, you can come right back into this spiral, if you will. When I say behavioral change, I also want you to think about like the emotional connection that we each have to money. No matter if you grew up in communities that are underserved or you grew up very well off, we all have an emotional connection to money. How we feel like we can spend and should spend, right? When do we think about we don't have McDonald's money? If you got McDonald's money, that's your business. But ultimately, we each have our own emotional connection to money. And so when you're going through this, when you're thinking about how do I tackle this debt, sometimes you're gonna have to think about, hey, do I need to have a more in-depth conversation with my spouse? Do I need to talk with a financial coach? Do I need to talk to a therapist, right? What are these things that are innately inside of me that I need to understand about my relationship with money that also needs to be addressed in addition to following the baby steps? Okay, so before I jump into each of the steps, any initial questions about the principles to think through, my own story, or are you ready to dive in? Good to go? Yes, Mr. Bell.
Yes, the first step to save that first $1,000. Could you share how you did that? Where did you find money within your budget to get that $1,000 saved?
Absolutely. So that's a perfect segue into the first baby step being $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. And I'll share that depending on where you are, you might think $1,000 is a lot or a little bit of money. Before you even say, okay, let me just save $1,000, you have to create a $0 based budget, right? That means listing out all of your income, listing out all of your expenses, subtracting the two, and then figuring out, okay, where do I have money that needs somewhere to go? So for me, I found out that there were times where I'm spending money buying clothes that I don't necessarily need right now. I'm buying Chick-fil-A, I'm buying a coffee, whatever that is. When you figure out that those dollars are not necessarily dollars that you need to be spending, they are wants, you can start to extract those wants and save your first $1,000. Now that can go into paying off your debt and saving for your larger emergency fund as well. But I would say the first thing is like, where are there ancillary expenses that you have that you can stop? So the first thing is saying no to yourself for the most part when you're talking about saving for that first $1,000. Another thing that I actually did was I started selling some things in my house that I didn't need. Facebook Marketplace was the homie. So I found there had a couple of mirrors, I had a couple of lamps. Hey, don't need this. Anybody interested on Facebook Marketplace? Truthfully speaking, I started high. Maybe some people would negotiate. I got $200 here, I got $50 here. Before you know it, you're already there. So those are some quick things that you can think about in terms of how do we get to that first $1,000. Now, when you're saving for this first $1,000, this is to address life's mini, M-I-N-I, emergencies, right? This is not for the big emergencies that come later, but this first $1,000 is to get you in the practice mindset of saving and not thinking about the use of a credit card for life's minor emergencies. So when you think about what are those mini emergencies, right? Things like an issue with your transmission in your car, the water heater floods your basement, or you have an unexpected medical bill. These are the things that you want to think about. Hey, I can go into my $1,000 emergency fund. I can address it there. It's no longer an issue. It becomes an inconvenience versus like, holy crap, how am I going to pay for this, right? That's what your $1,000 are for. So I already talked about your zero-based budget, so you can find where you can save money, right? So again, we talked about listing your income, listing your expenses, subtracting your expenses from your income, and tracking your expenses throughout the month, right? So right now, we're coming up on September 1st. You should be having a budget meeting with yourself if you're an individual, with your spouse if you're a couple, to understand where is our money going for the month of September. That is a practical step. That is the foundation of everything we're talking about, right? So once you start that budget at the beginning of, or before September 1st, between September 1st and September 30th, that doesn't mean, all right, the budget's there, we're good to go. You are continuously tracking that budget throughout the month. You understand where's our money going? What are some unexpected expenses that are coming up? You have already gone through the process of seeing, okay, what are some of the key categories that we know are coming up, and how do we make adjustments moving forward based off what our savings goals are? So in that packet that you have, there is a zero-based budget towards the back of that packet that is very entry level. It gives you some of the key topic areas that most of our household expenses fit in, right? Transportation, bills, clothing, debt, etc. It is not to be all-encompassing. You know what your budget considerations are, but it gives you a starting point to start to practice. All right, so I mentioned before that in addition to the knowledge, right? Now you know we need to create a budget, but there's also the behavioral aspects to it as well. So we're gonna do an activity for the group. The second page of your packet, I think it's pages 2 and 3 maybe, you'll see something that's called the Nerd and Free Spirit quiz. As I mentioned before, we have this emotional connection. When it comes to budgeting, each of us can fall into one of these two categories, the nerd or the free spirit, right? It's not an exact science. It's meant to be kind of fun, kind of cheeky. But I want each of you to take the time to fill out this quiz by yourself if you're an individual, with a partner if you are married. And just to kind of give you a heads up, the nerd is someone who loves to budget. They love an Excel spreadsheet. They're coming early to the budget meeting. The free spirit, they like to spend money. A budget is a guideline. It's not meant to be followed precisely. Think about those two categories. So I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes. Take the quiz, and then we're gonna chat about it in a moment. And if you've already done this quiz before, I'd recommend doing it again to see if anything has changed since you last took it. All right, I want you to raise your hand if you feel like you are a nerd based off of your scoring. Wait, did you calculate your score? If you didn't calculate your score, calculate your score. All right, raise your hand if you're a nerd. 1, 2. All right. And then raise your hand if you're a free spirit. All right, people not raising their hands. You got to be one or the other. Thank you, thank you. And you can be a ish, right? Nerd-ish, free spirit-ish. I thought I was a nerd until I got married to this man. Then I realized I'm more of a free spirit. Like, I do love an Excel, and I do want to know where my money's going, obviously. But I like to have a little fun, and sometimes I'm just like, I mean, we good right now. We can flex a little bit, but he keeps me pulling into the nerd side. Okay, so I would like to ask for a volunteer to share a little bit about what it was like for them to take the quiz. What did they learn about themselves? Or perhaps, what did you learn about your spouse, if you're married, that you didn't know? Please.
What I've learned, if we're going to have an argument at a house, it's usually going to be about money or buying something and so forth. So I didn't realize that I was such a free spirit because I was like, oh, hey. And then I looked over at hers and I'm like, oh, she's a nerd. So it's like, she be tight in the rain and I'd be like, wanting to let it go. So I thought that was interesting that on this quiz, we're like on the opposite end of the spectrum, which helps us balance it out.
Love that. And we've learned that more often than not, the two mirror each other. It's rare that you get a full nerd marrying a full nerd. It's usually one or the other, or people who are kind of in that ish category that end up partnering. So thank you for volunteering. My husband is going to give you a little gift card for you raise your hand. So now everybody else knows. Raise your hand, you might get a gift. And I didn't say this.
I don't know how much the gift is, but I'm plus whatever it is with the gift card.
There you go. There you go. And I will say I am the daughter of a teacher, so I have no problem calling on people if nobody raises their hand. So I'm going to say that too. Okay, so we've wrapped baby step number 1, saving $1,000 in your emergency fund. But first, you must create your zero-based budget, right? List your income, list your expenses, track your budget over the course of the month. I want to be transparent in saying that this takes some time, right? the important thing is to get started. It might take you a few months before you feel like we got the hang of this. We know where all of our expenses are. There's nothing else that's coming up that's unexpected, right? That doesn't mean that there's not going to be certain months that you're going to have outliers, right? All right, there's a birthday. You know, December comes, it's Christmas. Now you got to have a line item for Christmas gifts, etc., right? So it might take a few months to get the hang of it and say like, oh shoot, I forgot about that bill. Oh shoot, I forgot about this expense, whatever the case is. But the important thing is to get started. As I mentioned before, in your packet, there is a paper version of the budget. But if you go online, whether it's Google, fpu.com, ramseysolutions.com, you will find endless resources for budget templates. If you want an app, there are so many apps out there. For Dave Ramsey, he does have the every dollar budget that you can also use as well. I believe they offer a free trial to get started, and then eventually they would ask you to pay for it, I think after a certain period of time, but there's so many free resources out there. Any questions as we wrap baby step 1? Pretty straightforward. Everybody's gonna go home, figure out how they can save that $1,000 if they don't already have it. I see some head shaking. Perfect, okay. All right, baby step 2, the debt snowball. Now, I'm gonna say for me at that time, when I first started this process, this was the one that I got the most excited about, but was also the most daunting when I thought, okay, how do you figure out how to pay off $200,000 of debt, right? You start off small. You cannot just write, or I could not, just write a $200,000 check, but it started off, how do I pay my smallest debts first, and then going from there. So when we talk about paying off all of your debts, we're talking about your consumer debts. So we're talking about credit cards, car loans, personal lines of credit, medical bills, anything outside of your home, right? That's most people's biggest purchase that they will ever spend. But we're talking about that consumer debt. So how does the debt snowball work? I just kind of gave you a snapshot. You're going to list out all of your debts from smallest to largest, right? So when we talk about a small debt, it might be a small medical bill. It could be your cell phone bill, right? Or your cell phone, because cell phones, you know, can cost $1,000. Maybe you paid down some of that, but not all of it, right? So you may have your $800 cell phone that needs to get paid off, and then you have subsequent bills, right? That can range $1,000 to $100,000, whatever the case may be. List all your debts, smallest to largest. So we're going to set your smallest debt aside. For all of your other debts, you're going to pay your minimum balance. On that smallest debt that you have, you're going to attack that with a vengeance. You're going to say, how quickly can I pay off this smallest debt first? The idea is that you get that jolt of, yes, I've already paid off one, and now you have the momentum of all that you've paid off with that first debt. Now you can roll that momentum into the second debt. As you keep rolling from debt to debt, your snowball becomes larger and you're able to pay your debt down quicker. Because then you're moving from not just paying the minimum balance on those subsequent debts, but you're also using the freed up money from that smallest debt to roll into the second debt. Does that make sense? Great. Okay. So I want to reiterate that with debt, there is this huge emotional and cultural aspect to it. Culture, again, as I mentioned before, has made buying things that you cannot afford a normal way of life. One thing that I had to start asking myself was, can you buy it or can you afford it? Two different questions. We ask ourselves that now. Full transparency, there's a large purchase that we'd like to make, a dining room table. And we got a quote back from someone and they gave us a number that made my mouth drop on the floor. And I'm like, well, could we pay that? Yes. Should we pay that? No. Based off of other goals that we have right now, right? And so whether it is buying lunch or a large purchase, you should be asking yourself, can I buy it or can I afford it with the other goals that I have in mind? We're not telling you you can't spend big purchases on something, right? If you got it, get it, girl. But if you do not, these are the questions that you should be asking yourself. Because ultimately, debt steals your joy and it steals your paycheck. Your income is your largest path to wealth, right? So when we're talking about consumer debt, we want to talk through a few myths that are often perpetuated. The first being, you cannot go to college without taking out student loans. Where in actuality, almost 70% of millionaires went to college without student loans, whether that's through scholarships or having a job. A second myth, This one may be controversial, so don't throw darts at me. I pay my credit card off every month. I can earn points and airline miles. Those are true things. However, we're getting back to behaviors. If you are someone that you're like, oh, the more money I spend, the more miles I get. Are you spending more money than you actually need to be spending? So when I think about anything that really lends towards points, you're thinking about, are you spending more versus spending what you can buy, spending what you can afford. And again, focusing on those behaviors. Third, car payments are a way of life. You cannot live without a car payment. When in actuality, you can save money and pay cash for a car. It is possible. Now, it may be uncomfortable because that might mean I don't get the car that I want right now. I might have a used car, or I might have a car that is X years old, but is it possible? Yes, it is. I will say we're a family of 3, and currently we have 1 car. Sometimes it is challenging, right? But we pay cash for our car, and that is something that we are happy about because right now we call our car Baby Blue. She gets us to where we need to be. We don't have a car payment. We have had some maintenance things that we've had to address, right? But that's what the emergency fund is there for. So again, it's thinking about what are your longer term goals, what is a little discomfort right now, and managing that versus thinking about all the debt that can come with the decision that you and your finances are not ready to assume. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so this may be obvious, but how to get out of debt. Number 1, quit borrowing money. Don't add on to what you already have on, right? Second, save money, right? Save money down so that you can pay off your debt. 3, alluded to this earlier as well, what can you sell? There are so many things in your house that you perhaps do not need. There are fun ways to do this as well, right? Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you can think about, how do I DIY some things that are perhaps in my house and sell them to someone else who sees value in it, right? There are different ways we can think about selling what we currently have in our homes. Get another job. What are some additional skills that you have, right? Could you get a part-time job or a side hustle? Could you consult in some area that you're very smart in that perhaps others would pay for your services, right? Thinking about ways beyond your 9-to-5 job that you can, again, acquire additional income for your family. Because the 2 biggest ways, again, are going to be either you're increasing your income or decreasing your expenses. That's just how the math works. So if you're increasing your income, you're either getting another job, you're selling something, or perhaps you have dollars from an investment, something of that nature, or you're reducing your expenses, you're cutting back costs. For some people, at some point, you're gonna be like, I don't wanna cut out my weekly coffee. I don't wanna cut out my daily coffee. Cool, that's your business. But how are you going to increase your income in other ways so again, that you can address your debt? All right, the last thing I would say again on this piece, this is often the toughest step. It takes a ton of passion and motivation and intensity and discipline to get out of debt. A little anecdote here, when I was in business school, I was really big on traveling as much as possible when I wasn't in school. So I had the opportunity to study abroad, and with that, I traveled to other countries that were near my study abroad experience. Now, fast forward to when it was time to pay off debt, some of my friends were still traveling, right? This is when we're out of school, people are going on vacations. When I made the decision to be aggressive about paying down my debt, I had already bought a flight to go to Japan with some friends. A month out, I was like, y'all, I can't go. They're like, you already paid for the flight. Sorry, it is not aligned with my goals now. So there were several trips now that I was missing out on. Now, I can appreciate that there sounds like a level of privilege that comes with saying like, oh shoot, I can't go to Japan. So that's not my point to sound that way, but it does say that there was a way of living that I was used to. Now I had to make an adjustment if I wanted to meet my debt goals. So for then, it became this running joke with my friends, like, don't ask Crystal to do nothing. She's saving money, she's paying out her debt. The answer is no, and the answer was no for several years. But that's the thing that you have to think about is what discipline do you need to incur, right? For some of you, it might be, instead of getting a gym membership, maybe I'm walking or running outside. Maybe I just get a set of dumbbells and I'm working out at home. Obviously, cooking at home is a big one, right? Instead of going out, restaurants, what can I eat at home? If you like to shop, Maybe it means getting real creative. Put something in AI and say, hey, these are the 10 pairs of pants and the 10 shirts I got, make me some new outfits, right? So think about resources that are around you where you can get creative versus feeling like I have to spend. All right, before we move on to questions for baby step number 2, let's do another volunteer question. Would love a volunteer to answer, what is one area that you can cut back or cut out to reach your money goals? What is one area you can cut back or cut out to reach your money goals? Yes, Faith.
Gym membership.
Got it. Okay, so when you cut that out, then what you gonna do to stay healthy?
I can still do a HIIT workout on YouTube, jump rope. I have a jump rope. I have some dumbbells. So.
Creativity, exactly. YouTube has so many free resources, y'all.
Oh yeah,
YouTube.
I just got some MMA gloves that's weighted, so I can use that too.
Get it. I love it. YouTube, TikTok, all the free resources there. All right, so homework for baby step number 2 is preparing for the debt snowball. Listing your debts, smallest to largest, tackling that first debt with intensity, and paying the minimum balance on the subsequent debts. Questions on baby step number 2, getting out of debt? Pretty straightforward. All right. Now we're gonna move to baby step number 3, saving 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Now, baby step 1, we talked about your small emergency fund, that's $1,000, right? Now we're moving to being prepared for life's bigger, unexpected things that come up that may impact your savings. Because now we're out of debt, right? So now we're thinking about how am I saving so that we have that level of preparedness for the future. And then we're gonna talk about building wealth and giving. But steps 1 and 2, we've paid down our debt. We have a small emergency fund. Now we're just preparing if things happen in life, because they will, right? All right. So when you're thinking about this 3 to 6 months of emergency fund, you need to continue with the intensity that you've already attached to your debt, right? It's very easy after all your debt is paid off to say, whew, I'm good, we got this. Celebrate, please, because it's a big feat, right? But still go with that same intensity as you think about filling up your emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. This is hyper insurance and allows you to not get back into debt, right? But also keeps you from living in fear of when an emergency hits. I mentioned this before, but the cash you have in your emergency fund can turn a catastrophe into a simple inconvenience. Like, do I want to pay for this? No, but thank God I have the cash, we're covered, let's pay it off, and it's fine. The Bible says in Proverbs 21:20, the wise man saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets. So when you're thinking about, do I save 3 months of expenses or 6 months, I'll give you a few things to think about. But ultimately, I want to say, if you want to save more than 3 months, fantastic. If you want to save more than 6 months, fantastic, right? But also think about what your money could be doing for you beyond sitting in savings. You can get interest in different ways. That's another conversation, right? All right, so you should be saving 6 months of expenses if you fall into one of these categories. You're married but have a single income household. You're a single parent. You or your spouse is self-employed, works on commission, or have a highly irregular income. So think things that are seasonal in nature. You or someone in your house has medical concerns, and that's a chronic issue. You should be thinking about saving at least 3 months of expenses if you fall into one of these categories. You're single with no dependents and a stable income. You're married and have 2 incomes, both are stable. A big thing to think about when you tap into your emergency fund, build it back up after, right? So you don't say, all right, my emergency fund is 10K, I needed to take down 2K, cool. Put that 2K back after you have paid off for whatever it is you needed to pay off. Now, I will say going back to how you do this, the same way you just thought about how you pay down your debt, you're gonna take that same intensity with the 3 to 6 months. So you've already found ways where you can either cut costs or increase your income. that is the same dollars that are going to saving for your emergency fund. Does that make sense? Okay, so I do want to share a personal example that impacted our family where we had to tap into the 3 to 6 months. I will say, though I am nerd-ish, so I got a little free spirit in me, I am a hyper saver. So I feel like that's natural for women, right? We want to feel that safety of like, we got something to fall on if we need to. So in July of last year, so 2024, I had a one-on-one conversation with my boss at the time. And when he starts the meeting, he says, well, this is gonna be a tough conversation. I'm like, who starts a conversation off like that? Like, just tell me what you need to tell me. Which is what I said. I said, can you just tell me what you need to tell me? I work in HR, like, I know how this goes, what's up? And he says, all right, so you know we've been having some financial challenges at our company, blah, 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 blah. Mind you, I had initiated this conversation with him a few weeks prior, and he said, you have nothing to worry about. You're good. You're a great performer. Nothing to worry about. So as he goes through this conversation, he says, you have two options. You can stay at your same level, but your role is going to have slightly different responsibilities and come with almost a 50% pay cut. Or you can take this package. So had a conversation with my husband, and in full transparency, the package that my boss was talking about was only 2 weeks pay, which to me was a slap in the face, respectfully. But what he didn't know is that another coworker who was our previous CEO had advocated for me months prior to be able to get a much larger package if I ever decided to leave the organization. That was nothing but God. So have a conversation with my husband. I say, hey, these are the two options on the table. Take this job or take a package. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I'm out. We looked at our budget. We looked at our emergency fund along with the package that was given, and we said, hey, we believe we can make this work for about 6 months. Praise God. So we decided I was gonna leave the job. Now what we didn't know is that the 3 to 6 months turned into 9 months of not having a salary. Now I did have some consulting engagements throughout that process, right? So still found a way to take that same mentality of what can I bring in to contribute to our household income during this time. Still, husband was the MVP, bringing in the salary. I was able to get on his healthcare. Like the partnership was there, praise God. But it shows that the emergency fund literally did what we needed it to do for 9 months, right? And so fast forward March of this year, have a new job, very excited. It's in the industry that I wanted to be in. But had I not had that time of, yes, the challenge of figuring out how we were gonna continue to think about our finances for the future, a big blessing in that was me being able to think about, God, what is the next career move for me, right? So having that space was huge because this was an industry that I've been trying to get in for over a decade, right? So thinking about all those things, reflecting on it is a blessing, but it does say that the emergency fund is there because emergencies will hit. It doesn't necessarily mean a layoff. It doesn't necessarily mean a restructuring at your job, but it could mean, again, medical. It could mean, oh shoot, we need to find a new daycare for our child that instead of costing, $1,000 a week is now $1,400 a week. How do we think about that, right? We didn't budget that. So things will happen. The emergency fund is there so you can be prepared. Does that make sense? Yes. Cool. Questions on 3 to 6 months? No, okay. Another activity for you all and the opportunity to win another gift card. Okay. So we're gonna play a game called Emergency or Nah. The objective is you have to figure out, is it an emergency or not? All right, so I need a one volunteer who's gonna answer all three. Yes, glasses. Young lady, what's your name? Yolanda. Yolanda? Pleasure, okay. First scenario. It is your first month at a new job and your team wants to go out to lunch. Lunch is not in your budget. Is it an emergency or not? Good job. On July 26th, Charlotte had the highest temperature thus far of the year at 101 degrees. Your car AC goes out and you're wondering if you should replace it. Emergency or not?
It happened when?
July 26th. You still got a month and a half. You still got a month and a half of summer left in North Carolina. Is it an emergency? Does the crowd agree?
At the age of 44, it's an emergency.
I would say
What's
no.
the call before you window down, 95,
It's the car. It's the car.
It's a car, it's an emergency.
4 months. And he got signed emergency. Oh,
So,
you
yep.
have to get the air replaced or just buy the can of Freon and.
No, you gotta. It's gonna cost you about $1,200 to replace.
No, you can buy the can of Freon, that's not.
It binds.
But if it's not, you gotta fully get it replaced.
It's not
I like the contingency plan, the contingency discussion that we have here. But as for me in my house, that's an emergency. It'd be hot out here at the edges. I'm an athlete, so I get hot. I gotta get to work fresh. It was an emergency for us, but I understand all of that, right? Because some of this is going to be subjective. Some things are like absolutely not, yes or no, right? Okay, third one. Your 16-year-old son cannot find his cleats the night before his baseball game. And buying new shoes is not in your budget for the month. It's the championship game. Emergency or not?
Emergency.
I didn't say he was the MVP. He was on the team.
If he's if the game is going to fail,
No,
if he does not come, then I would have to consider that an emergency. But if he sits on the bench, then he's gonna be wearing his.
Okay, my guy in the back in the white t-shirt, you raise your hand. What's your thought?
No, it's not an emergency.
All right, so I vote too, it is not an emergency. Because if I'm trying to, you 16, I have told you, or I've tried to teach you responsibility. We didn't say they were stolen, you lost your shoes. So we're gonna learn this lesson. And I bet next season, you're not gonna lose your cleats. So that's a nah for me. You could be either, probably. See, when we add more, then we can, yeah, if his scholarship on the line, yeah, boo, it's an emergency.
It's an emergency. You tell the 16-year-old boy, you say, hey, boy, I'm gonna buy these cleats or whatever. But when the season is over with,
You pay me back.
You wanna pay me back. You gonna wash my car. I'm gonna get that money back. Some way.
I love it. Thank you, Yolanda. I know she has some help from the audience, but since Yolanda raised her hand, we're gonna give her the gift card. All right. So homework for baby step 3 is first, determine your emergency fund goal. Is it 3 months or is it 6 months? Then you're gonna calculate your expenses for one given month and then multiply that times 3 or times 6 to get what your emergency fund should look like. Again, if you wanna have more than 3 to 6, that is your business, that is your comfort level. I would also encourage you to talk to a financial planner if you could be gaining interest elsewhere. But 3 to 6 months is what you should be thinking about. And then lastly, we'd recommend opening a separate account for that money to live, right? So you can have your checking account, but I would say bring that money out of that account, have it separate so you see it. You're not dipping into that with your normal expenses month to month. Cool. Any questions? I'm gonna look at my brother, the financial planner. You got any comments?
Which part?
You can come up here. We got an extra microphone. Okay. Now we're gonna move to baby steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I say all those at once because we're out of debt, we have our savings, and now you live in life, right? You get to focus on the fun things of investing for your family, whether that's you as an individual, you and your spouse, your kids, etc. So baby step number 4 is to invest 15% of your household income in retirement. Now, this 15% presumes that you are, in your early 20s for the most part. You're starting to invest early and often, and you're thinking about retirement around that 65, 67 age. Now, if you are not in that category, your investment strategy may look different. You need to think about what is the amount that you want to have in retirement, right? If it's 1 million, 5 million, some other number, right? Thinking about what that number looks like will tell you what your percentage of retirement, what percentage you should be investing now until your retirement date, right? So does that make sense to everybody? The math has got to math, right? Because if right now you're only investing 15% and you're 60 years old, then your retirement fund is going to look a certain amount. Versus if you've been doing it since you were 20, your retirement is going to look a much greater amount, right? So there's no right or wrong to it if you are where you are. The thing is, start now so that there's something for you to live on once you retire, if you decide to retire. Yes, please.
Okay, earlier you made a statement about women, they like to feel comfortable and secure knowing that they have that extra money.
Yep.
Okay, now, Rose and I, we fall in that investment range where we're already older. And I'm of the mindset where, and she's coming there, I'm of the mindset where I like to invest. I like to take money that we have in the bank, that in the bank you're only gonna get pennies on the dollar. But go and take your extra money that you got and invest it somewhere. And what happens is that we have that fear factor where you don't wanna do it because this over here, we know we got it, but you're giving it away now.
Yep.
And you're uncertain about what's gonna happen.
Yep.
So, for us being older, the 15% range would be higher, right? Okay, so.
But what are you investing?
Oh, she know what I want to invest in.
Yeah, that's the question.
She know what I want to invest in,
Yeah.
and she let me do a little bit, but I want to do more.
My brother was over here laughing. He is a licensed financial planner. Brother, would you like to say something to the group?
Sure.
Let
I
him
guess
use
first
one
off,
of
what you
those
stated
mics.
there,
They may not be.
Thank you, brother. I think first off, what you stated there from, once we have our emergency savings met, right? Then it becomes, what is our plan to be invested accordingly, right? And the principles of saying, hey, I have my emergency savings that is taken care of, if that's 3, if that's 6, if that's 9, whatever that may be. Then we're going to say we're investing, you said the 15%, we heard from Crystal on the 15% from investing. However, we all have a number, right? What is that number for us to feel as if we're financially free to retire, where we don't have to work? How do we get there? That's how we figure out, is it 20%? Is it 25%, depending on when you're starting? But then too, in some situations, we may have to adjust our number because where is this money going to come from based off of the current income, expenses, etc. But to get to your point of what you're really asking from the investing point, we do believe investing is important, but based off of, once again, that number, how many more years you have to, let's just call it a retirement date to keep it simple, to that retirement day or that day we want to stop working that we're needing to get to, that once again can change how conservative you should be in the sense of your investing. And when I say conservative from investing, we can say, hey, from very conservative, we just got it in the bank, it's a savings account, it's a CD, then we start getting to more non-conservative options, you start talking about bonds, you start talking about stocks, and then what is the different risk level of stocks? Do I want to go to NVIDIA? Do I want to go to Google? Whatever that may be, those risk levels change. And yes, you understand, as you said, giving away. I would use a different language, and none of this is advice right now, but I would use different language when we think about giving it away. We are investing for whatever that may be, right? Whatever that goal is. But when you're thinking about that investing as well, there's a risk level that is no crystal ball. Whatever we invest in can go down, it can go up, it can stay exactly the same, right? But we can go to a historical performance of what you're seeing. So a long way of saying, based off the current needs that we have, we may have to invest and a more riskier level based off our current age to get to our number.
Yeah.
However, it does come with that consulting of understanding what is the risk level and understanding, are you okay if it goes down 10%? How would that make us feel?
Because the money in the bank, just by nature of how economics work, your dollar is losing value every day. So at some point, you have to figure out, okay, I'm literally losing money every day versus the opportunity of me growing my money through my investments, right? So you kind of have to think about both of those pieces. But again, based off where your income and your savings are now and your age, you can think about your risk tolerance, right? So, you know, things like Dale mentioned, savings, then you have CDs, then you have certain mutual funds, you have growth versus others, right? International, et cetera. So the story goes on. But I think the good thing about the starting point is thinking about what is going to be steady investments versus what is like, okay, how can I quote unquote get rich quick, right? Because if the strategy feels like, oh, I'm just gonna over index on this stock or that, then you are perhaps over indexing yourself on according to your risk profile. Does that make sense too? Yes, no, maybe so.
I get it.
Your risk profile will change based off of your age as well, your time horizon, as they call it in the financial industry. So as a 35-year-old man versus a 60-year-old man, you have a lesser time horizon to get to X goal, right? So that risk profile is the time horizon, what is the number that we're saving for, and then we may have to up our risk even higher than what is recommended to reach your number. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this will be my last
Yeah,
question
you're
on
fine.
this topic.
Yeah.
I think I want to make myself a little more clear.
Yeah.
I'm not one that believe in investing and putting my money in the bank because I've seen how you can have $5,000-$10,000 in savings, and at the end of the year, your investment is not even $5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a waste right there.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, I don't believe in investing. So taking the yardstick of my age,
Mm-hmm.
seeing where I'm at currently, and what I'm believing for my life expectancy. So if to just basically say what I'm gonna say in a nutshell to sum it up, I am a big component of putting my money, proponent of putting my money into not the market, not bonds nor stock, but gold and silver. That's where I want to be. That's where I've been putting it here for the last 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something that you have in hand. It's yours.
Yeah.
Once you purchase it, it comes in the mail to you. And I'm just this way, you know, whenever things change or whenever the numbers go up in gold and silver, I got whatever amount of money on the ounce that it is per price.
Got you.
See, so that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
at. So 15% of whatever I want to invest in of my savings I got, that's where we have to come to an agreement on. Because if I want to do 15% of that, I'm going to go invest in that gold or silver.
Yeah, absolutely. Hear what you're saying. And so just for the group, summary of what we just talked about, first and foremost, start investing, period, right? Then you need to be thinking about, based off of where you are today, where you would like to be in retirement, what do you need to be saving? Sorry, what do you need to be investing each month? Got it? If you want detailed advice, do not hire me. Hire a licensed financial planner. I know them. Let me know if you would like to be introduced to one. Okay. Okay. Actually, I do want to share one other quick story. One of the things that when we went on our honeymoon, we had the opportunity to just like run into so many couples, most of them over the age of 60, most of them retired. And I don't know if we were drawn to them or they were drawn to us, or it was just like, our paths happened to cross. But my husband is very social. I usually am just like, I'm gonna just mind my business, put my hat on. But he made some great conversations with people, and oftentimes would ask them like, hey, how did you plan for retirement? How are you here? What does your life look like? And the two things each person talked about was 401k and their health. So there's no cost that you could put on health, right? Am I healthy? Can I travel the world? Can I do what I want to do? Great. But when people talked about their investment strategies, some were real estate, but for the most part, it was boring investments. It was 401ks, it was mutual funds, it was Roth. It was just doing it consistently for 30, 40 years, whatever the case may be. And when I say these people were traveling, they were traveling well. They were like, oh, we're here for a month. Oh, we're here for X number. We're here, and then we're going here, and then we're going here. We travel, like, we don't do it every time, but like our 2 big trips a year, we're flying business class or first class. I'm like, get it. I love that for you. So like, it was reassuring for us of just like, yes, there may be times where you think, oh, I have the extra to invest in something that might be riskier, right? But for the most part, it was steady investing to get to where people wanted to be when it came to retirement. But I also want to emphasize health, because if you got the money, but your body can't move, that's another thing too, right? So how do we be intentional stewards of the body God has given us as well? Okay, baby step number 5 is saving for your child's college fund. If you have kids, 529 plan, as soon as they are birthed, they can have a 529 plan. If your child decides not to go to college for whatever reason, the 529 plan can be used for other things, whether it's trade school, you know, instead of a 4-year college, an associate's degree. You can also pass it to another child, I believe even grandchild as well. And it can also be, a portion of it can be transferred to a Roth IRA. A portion of it can also be used to pay down student loans. So there are alternatives if your child decides not to go to school, but highly invest 529 plan as soon as you birth your child, or at any age you are able to start investing for them there. One thing that we would share, the gentleman here who said before about the cleats, like, now you got to pay me back. Have your child have some skin in the game, right? I think it is a blessing when you're in a place to pay for your child's school, but at the same time, like, there's an opportunity to get them some skin in the game too. Get a job, you're paying for your food expenses. That's not coming out of my pocket. Or maybe you cover, or the student is thinking about their fund money or their travel money or whatever the case may be. Get them to have some skin in the game, so it's not just, oh, I can just live on mom and dad's dime forever. And if I stay in school, great. If I don't, it's fine. Somebody else foot the bill. So would highly encourage that they get some skin in the game, and of course, still apply for scholarships so you can save that cash. Okay, baby step number 6 is to pay off your home early. This is a big one. This one is going to feel more like a marathon. Again, mentioned before that most of us, your home will be the largest purchase. Even if you invest in real estate later, multiple homes, right? It's still going to be a significant purchase for most of us, right? So it is going to feel more like a marathon. But any extra money you can put towards your mortgage will help you save tens of thousands, if not more, dollars of interest over the life of your mortgage. Now, if you're thinking about buying a home out the gates, when you're thinking about how to move through that quickly, ideally you're targeting a 15-year mortgage that's not more than 25% of your income, and then you're putting about 10% down. But again, that's with the goal of paying off your mortgage quickly versus the traditional 30-year mortgage. Questions there? No? Okay. Baby step 7. This is the ultimate fun one, is now you're investing, you're continuing to invest, right? That doesn't necessarily stop. We said baby steps 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all happening concurrently. But baby step 7 is the opportunity to build wealth continuously and to give as much as your heart's desire, right? The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 9:7, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver, right? And I just want to align to not just that scripture, but even what we're talking about in building wealth and giving. We're talking about like outrageous generosity here. This is not talking about tithing, right? Tithing should be happening consistently, right? No matter what baby step you're on. That might look different for you depending on where your finances are. For some people, it might be, my tithing is giving my time right now because I got what I need for my 4 walls of my family, right? But tithing, when you are consciously paying down your debt and you're saving your cash, you're giving your 10% to God. We're here when we're talking about building wealth and giving in baby step 7, outrageous generosity. You're giving to, whether it's charities, whether it's other initiatives that you care about, whether it's doing your offering above and beyond at church. That's what we're talking about here when you're building wealth and giving in baby step number 7. All right. Those are the 7 baby steps, friends. Questions? Comments? We're going to do an activity.
I have a,
Yes, please. Go ahead, Ms. Milk.
okay, a quick question. So, let's say someone doesn't have the, well, I think you may have answered it, never mind.
You sure?
Yeah, I think you answered it.
Okay. If you feel differently in a moment, let me know.
Okay.
All right, this one we're gonna need 2 volunteers, but beforehand, I'm gonna do a quick exercise with everyone and ask you all to close your eyes for a moment. So I want you to fast forward in your mind. You are debt-free, including your house. You have a massive emergency fund. So all you ladies out there who feel like, hey, I don't know about 3 to 6 months, you have all the emergency fund you need. You're actively investing. Your house is paid off again, as I mentioned. What does this new life look like for you? Imagine where you're traveling, perhaps time with your grandkids. What causes are you supporting? What does your day-to-day feel like without the weight of debt or similar obligations? Think about that for a few more seconds. Okay, I would like 2 volunteers, and I'll let you know what you'll be volunteering to share. Would love to hear you describe your dream retirement. And I also would love an example of when a time that generosity has impacted your life, whether you were the giver or the receiver. All right, blue dress. Dream retirement.
My dream retirement is, me and my husband owns a business, so our goal is to have our business global. So I see us being retired, having our multiple businesses, being able to give back. I would like a lot of nonprofit with children, like children nonprofit programs, and just enjoying life with my kids and my grandkids. I have 3 daughters. And then the second question you said was?
Before you jump into the second one, first, thank you for sharing. Love that for you. One thing I want to acknowledge, can you say your name?
Nicole.
What Nicole said is, we have multiple businesses in retirement. To me, that signals that to some degree, Nicole and her husband still have responsibility, purpose, and they're working to some capacity. Retirement looks like what you want it to look like. For some people, you on the golf course, period. For some people, hey, I still have these businesses, but I have a staff of XYZ that is keeping the money flowing to continue to fund my retirement, right? Retirement doesn't necessarily mean that you're not working. It could be retirement from a life that you no longer want to live, and now you're able to live the type of life that you want to live. That might mean my retirement is fully funded, and now I can work this job that gives me a portion of what I would like to be getting normally, but I'm good. So I will do this job because it brings me joy, as an example. Anyways, Nicole, the next one was, can you share a time that generosity has impacted your life, whether you were the giver or the receiver?
I was the receiver. Can't wait to be the giver. But just stumbling within health and income, we've been blessed many times, and it was this one time where we were really about to just let our trucking business go, but we were blessed and was able to keep our business going. So that in itself made me and my husband open our hearts even more to being able to reciprocate that energy to someone else.
Love that. Praise God. Yes. All right. Nick, I think we still got one more gift card. Okay, perfect. Can I get a second volunteer that feels comfortable answering the same 2 questions? Bueller. Are you volunteering someone? Would you like to share?
What was the
The first question is, what's your dream retirement?
Well, when I pictured my dream retirement, it was more so in a vacation spot. So I was
Great.
thinking just how relaxed I would be, even as you were saying, like, you've invested your money in whatever you wanted to invest it in. So I was like, okay, I'm watching the market go up. I'm watching it make money. That's kind of how I pictured relaxing and on a vacation. Just also the stress of not having to worry about when the next paycheck is coming in, or when the next paycheck was coming in, or making sure I have everything in one spot. It was just more so the I guess a euphoria feeling of like, I actually don't have to worry about this. Like, this is not a stress, this is not on my mind, this is not taking any joy in any way. And then what was the second one?
A time that generosity has impacted your life, whether you were the giver or the receiver.
Well, I like to volunteer, so I like to give my time in places that everybody might not give their time places in. So even when I was younger, in like grade school, I would go and help a soup kitchen, and being able to, one, give back to the community that was less fortunate or did not have the same connections as I did. I was able to just put my time there, networking with people. That's always a place I can kind of go back to and have that family or people that remember you that like, yeah, I see you there, and you know, and everybody that you used to be there with and things like that. So it's just kind of nice to do that. And something that I love that my daughter loves to do too, of like giving back and volunteering. She's always excited when we go somewhere and give back to people.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I love to hear is that who you are before you have money is the person you will be after you get money. So I love that you have a heart of generosity and giving in those capacities, because that's what you would still do thereafter. Fantastic. Okay. The last thing that I want to quickly say is that, you know, in addition to the 7 baby steps, there's other key topics that come with this program, if you will. Things that get around wise spending, insurance, types of insurance that are encouraged or discouraged based on what your financial goals are, going deeper into building wealth and the different types of investment strategies, and then buying and selling your home or real estate thereafter. So I believe that this program does go through a lot of things that are just, how do I want to say this? Very easy to follow, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to do, but easy to understand what the process is going from step to step. All right, so in closing, we do have a couple more things we want to give away if we have time. But in closing, wanted to talk through a few things and just really reiterate that though I am standing here, and we are out of debt with the exception of our home, like we are not perfect. There are times where we feel like, oh, we've been spending a lot, let's get back on the wagon. Like, we have ignored our budget this month, like, let's get back on the wagon, right? So there are times where like that happens for us. There are times where when I was actively in the debt repayment process where I had some challenges as well. I remember one time where I miscalculated something I was paying off, and I was like, oh shoot, I am in the hole $500 right now, and this is not what I planned for. So figuring out, okay, how do I find this extra $500 to pay for something else because I miscalculated, right? So like things will happen, but either use your emergency fund or think about how can you lean on other resources that you've gained throughout this program. But ultimately, I would say God and community are going to be extremely helpful. This is a process, but like submit all of it in prayer to God. There are countless blessings that He has bestowed upon me and our family throughout this process. I talked about the job change. There were times where when I was single that I was able to stay with a good friend for a fraction of the rent that it costs to live in Boston. And that extra money that I saved on rent all went to paying down my student loan debt. So we are stewards of the blessings that we get, right? So when you get a blessing, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I got an extra $100 to go pay for these shoes or whatever, but how do you use that again to steward over the money well that God has entrusted you with? So prayer, community, and accountability, but also once you are trusted to steward over your money, or when you're given that money, think about what does stewardship look like for you. So the last thing I'll say in closing is we go to another church, and through our church, we actually host a Financial Peace University small group that's typically about, I would say, max 12 people. We like to keep it really small because people are sharing some personal things when it comes to their finances. But we are launching our next group September 14th. It'll be, it's a 9-part class, but we'll do it every other week. So we'll take a few months to kind of get through all the content. If you're interested in learning more, being a part of that, I'm happy to share my information. Mr. and Mrs. Belk have it as well, so we are happy to connect if that's something you're interested in. No pressure, but a plug, if you will. And then I'm also a certified financial coach through this program, so I do have one-on-one conversations with folks as well, if that's something you're interested in. But I do like to give the disclaimer, as I said before, I am not a financial planner. My brother is, and I know other people who are. So if you're needing advice on like true investment strategies, highly recommend you go with a licensed financial planner as well. Lastly, additional Ramsey resources. And again, it doesn't need to be Dave Ramsey, right? God has anointed many people to educate us about our finances, right? There's YouTube, there are podcasts, both of which he has. There are so many books. Educate yourselves, right? There is so much that we can know so that we are not destroyed by lack of knowledge, so that we are funded for the lives that we want to live here before we get to heaven, right? That is all I have. We would like to give away a book if anyone is interested. I went over the 7 baby steps, but this book, The Total Money Makeover, goes into more depth. If you are interested in reading it and perhaps going through the course as well or not, your choice. But I'm not going to tell you the question that you have to answer. You just have to raise your hand and then answer the question if you would like the book. Do I have a bold volunteer? I promise it's not a hard question. Yes. Gentleman in the white shirt, what's your name? Montrell. Thank you. Can you please share the 7 baby steps? All right, Mr. and Mrs. Belk, turn the floor back over.